a brilliant intellectual.
As am I.
The two of us are sick and tired of dealing with troglodytes and have moved into a bomb shelter so we don't catch the stupid.
To stay sharp, we spend our days pursuing the pastime of true intellectuals, debunking YouTube videos.
We are the Debunkers.
Oh, it's so hot today.
Yes, even our advanced air control system isn't enough to keep us cool.
So hot.
Curse you, summer months.
Oh, it's so hot today.
If only we could find something to debunk online. That might get our mind off of things.
Oh, dreadfully hot.
Huzzah! We've got a video to debunk! To the screening room!
America, the greatest country on earth.
Yes, that's true.
Nothing to debunk here.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
A narrative packed and sold to tiny patriots, reinforced by every cartoon, movie, cheeseburger, and mattress sale.
Guaranteed.
A mythology so entrenched, our most beloved personalities urge us never to question it.
Don't let anyone ever tell you that this country isn't great. This right now is the greatest country on earth.
Greatest country God ever gave me.
You're the greatest country in the world, I'll tell you that.
No, America's the greatest country in the world.
But what if we did question it? Now, hold on, patriots. I know what you're thinking. America's done some pretty great stuff. And you're right. We built a kick-ass democracy.
Watch your language, young man. We don't say the D word around here.
Yes, and neither did the founders. They built a republic after all.
Walked on the moon, and we built universities so prestigious that even Taliban warlords send their kids.
We also created the internet, developed most medical innovations, pioneered the smartphone, fostered the technological revolution all out of Silicon Valley. And so many things I simply couldn't list them in a single video.
And we're still very patient.
By the time the Cold War was waning and baby boomers were booming out their own babies, it truly felt like we were the greatest country on earth. Now, listen, of course there's no single way to measure greatness, but one good test is how we rank into OECD, which is basically a golf club of 36 countries, predominantly wealthy, Western, and democratic. And unlike most golf clubs, this one's got some diversity too. America is the richest country in this club, but we're also the poorest, with a whopping 18% poverty rate.
Ah, I was waiting for you to say something wrong. My good sir, poverty statistics are calculated based on the median income of a country.
Yes, indeed. If you earn 60% of the median income of your nation or less, you're counted as being at or below the poverty line, meaning what's considered poor in one country may be considered middle class in another.
Indeed, if the median income in a country was $1 million, then anyone who made $600,000 or less would be considered poor.
Yes, and speaking of relatively poor people in a truly rich country having a higher standard of living than most people throughout the world, the so-called poverty line in the US is actually roughly equal to or higher than the median income in many OECD countries, such as Israel, Japan, Italy, Spain, Poland, Belgium, Ireland, Greece, Hungary, and more.
In fact, only 3 OECD countries have wealthier poor people than the US does.
Closer to Mexico than Western Europe.
Weird that so many people from Mexico seem to want to come here then.
Oh, it may seem strange, until you realize our poverty line is over 3 times higher than the median income of Mexico.
12.8 million American children live in poverty. That's almost 1 in 5 of our kids. And speaking of kids, turns out at the level of high school science, we're 19th of 36. Reading, 20th. And math, a dismal 30th.
Yes, the public school system is wonderful, isn't it? Interestingly enough, in the 1960s and 70s, the US had the best educated students in the world.
But then in 1979, the federal government saw how well things were going and decided there needed to be a solution. And the Department of Education was formed.
From that point onward, rather than letting local school systems develop their own curriculums, as they had been doing, the federal government centralized and nationalized educational standards to a much stronger degree.
And since then, educational spending has increased much faster than inflation, and the US has fallen farther and farther behind each year.
And yet I have a hunch that he may be trying to make the case for more centralized authority in state bureaucracy than less.
Now, I'm not that good at math, not America's fault,
Well, I'm glad you found something that isn't.
but that does not add up well, and neither does this. We spend more on healthcare than any other country in the golf club, especially out of our own private little pockets.
Oh, our quasi-privatized healthcare system doesn't just subsist off of our private little pockets. Many people from countries with socialized healthcare systems, like Canada, bring their private little pockets down here for the privilege of receiving treatment under our system.
Now why on earth would they do that?
But we live sicker and shorter lives.
Of course, but there are many factors outside of our healthcare system which account for this.
For example, America leads the developed world in automobile accidents due to the fact that we prefer driving to public transportation, which lowers our lifespan drastically.
Yes, as well as the fact that our diets are extremely poor. Obesity lowers life expectancy no matter how good your healthcare system is. I've come to terms with that.
Not to mention, life expectancy varies wildly across the US and can even be broken down by factors such as culture and ethnicity. Japan, for example, has the second highest life expectancy rate in the world at 85 years. And Asian Americans have a life expectancy of about 87. So perhaps there's more at work here than America being bad?
Also, I would be remiss not to mention that Denmark has fully socialized medicine, but 16 US states have equal or higher life expectations.
Expectations? It's expectancies, you fool.
I meant to say expectations. Stop it.
We're fatter.
Indeed. Now imagine having to pay for every fat person's healthcare.
Yes, the only fatty whose healthcare I'm paying for is my own.
And globally, we're more likely to see newborns die. We're even behind Bosnia.
Flat out untrue. This claim is based on extremely misleading statistics.
Yes. In the US, if a baby is born who can be saved but isn't, their death is reported in the neonatal mortality statistics. But in other countries, it's more common for babies in this situation to be counted as miscarriages or stillbirths, and they therefore aren't measured in said country's infant mortality statistics. Also, in the US, very low birth weight infants are considered to be alive. Because, they are. But in places like Canada, Germany, and Australia, a premature baby weighing less than 500 grams is considered to be already dead, even if it's breathing and has a heartbeat. So they don't have to add it to their infant mortality statistics when their healthcare system fails to save its life.
Indeed, and interestingly enough, since 2000, of the 52 surviving babies who were born weighing less than 400 grams, 42 of them were born and saved in the US.
But we have freedom in America, and everyone's jealous or something.
The enemies of freedom.
Pursuing the enemies of freedom.
The enemies of freedom.
And other enemies of freedom.
Oh, so edgy.
Turns out, a lot of countries have freedoms.
Oh, of course. But which ones?
Not the ones the US has, that's for sure. Both Germany and Canada claim to have free speech, for example, but in 2017, at least 36 German homes were raided over offensive social media posts. And in Canada, a comedian was forced to pay $42,000 in fines for making the wrong joke. So, yeah, if this is the freedom that other countries have, you can keep it.
And while we boast about them, using our rights is a different story. Only 56% of Americans turn out to vote, while it's closer to 80% in countries like Denmark and Australia.
Yes, because in Australia, voting is mandatory.
But other countries have freedom too, right?
Also, just because one has the right to do a certain thing doesn't mean they're obligated to.
Indeed. Voting is like owning a gun. Just because everyone has the right to do so doesn't mean everyone should. If you haven't done the proper work to inform yourself on the matter, you're likely to do more harm than good. Do you really want more uninformed voters contaminating our elections?
Well, I suppose if I made severely dishonest and misleading political infomercials for the New York Times, I would.
And it's getting worse. This year, America slid on global rankings of corruption and freedom and dropped from a functional to a flawed democracy.
What does this even mean? Also, again, not a democracy, a republic.
So what, besides our economy and military, are we actually number one in?
Not like either of those things are very important.
You can't blame him for being dismissive. The left's been working tirelessly to destroy both.
Turns out, a lot of things.
I was waiting for this to turn into a hacky regurgitation of the pompous monologue from the newsroom.
Civilian gun ownership.
Good.
Mass shootings.
Incorrect. The claim that the U.S. leads the world in mass shooting frequency or deaths is based on data supplied by Langford, who refused to release the actual list of shootings he gathered for his assessment. Odd.
Yes. Also, Langford's study, which again he won't release the full data on for some reason, reported that over 47 years there were 90 public shooters in the US, and 202 in the rest of the world. Yet when looking at data on foreign attacks, for just 1/3 of the amount of time Langford studied, over 1,400 shootings could be found outside of the US. So, something fishy is going on with that data.
TV watching. Prescription drug abuse. Prison population.
He's got us there.
Broken clock and all.
Oh, and almost number one on environmental damage, edged out by China. It's gotten to a point where I think there are specific times and places where you can confuse America for a developing country.
Completely,
I don't even know where to begin correcting you with that one.
Yes. You know how many developing countries need to build walls to keep people out and then get called evil for doing so because their developing country is so awesome that it's considered a human rights violation to not let other people live there?
Imagine being so privileged and needing so desperately to sulk that you cherry-pick data points and use misleading statistics to call a nation you have the privilege of getting paid to make crappy videos in a developing country.
As elections are tampered with, water can't be drunk from taps.
Yes. No one, anywhere, in the entire US can drink from any tap anywhere ever again because in one city of one state, the water supply was compromised. Taps are cancelled. No more water anywhere for anyone from taps. Say goodbye to taps. They don't exist anymore.
Not to mention, which political party was in charge of Flint when this happened? The Democrats? Oh, and who's been supplying them with solutions and offering to repair the city's filtration system? Private companies?
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Citizens don't trust uniformed officers.
Or journalists. But that can't be because of anything they've done, right?
Infrastructure is crumbling, and where a dual system is emerging when public services are for sale for the highest bidder. You see this in countries like Pakistan or Nigeria, where the rich don't worry about the sad state of electricity or police because, well, they have generators and private security. Or in America, where the Kardashians rent their own firefighting force.
My dear chap, in third world countries, it isn't the wealthy who have access to premium services. It's the politicians.
Also, the police and the electrical grid. Two of the things you're complaining about are mostly government-run. Are you advocating for privatization?
We were fortunate enough and blessed enough, and I know that not everyone has this luxury available to them, but we were able to get private firefighters.
When health, education, and safety are increasingly privatized,
we're headed in the right direction.
You know what's more important than any of those things? Food! Is he going to complain about the fact that our method of distributing sustenance is private? Or, deep down, would he rather keep it private because he doesn't want to starve to death and he knows that government involvement is what's slowing the programs he's complaining about down?
Are driven by privilege.
What does that even mean? Oh my gosh. Oh, I have such a migraine.
The truth is, how great America is really depends on how rich you are.
How great life is anywhere depends upon how rich you are. And as shown earlier, the poor in the US do better than the average citizen in other OECD countries. And in many ways, they're doing better than the average American was just a few decades ago.
Now, I'm not saying we're Pakistan or Nigeria or any number of what we like to call developing countries, but we're not perched as high above them as we'd like to think.
No, we aren't as high above them, because we've spent the last 100 years leading the way in trading with other nations, pulling them out of poverty. Over the past 100 years, the absolute poverty rate worldwide has gone from around 90% to under 9%. America invests in third world countries and has exported the internet, allowing people worldwide educational opportunities they never had before. The standard of living gap between Americans and other nations is closing, not because we're failing, but because they're succeeding. The US isn't number one on everything, and we were never meant to be. But to ignore our role in bringing countless other nations to prosperity would be to miss the point entirely.
We got so caught up in the rhetoric about America being the greatest country on earth that we've long ignored the cracks in our system. And while a bit of patriotism is great, jingoism is dangerous, especially when it's built on old or fake news.
Complaining about fake news seems to be a bit hypocritical in this instance.
Why? Because of the numerous examples of misinformation we've pulled apart over the course of our viewing of this video?
I was going to say because he's working for the New York Times, but same difference.
So as we gear up for another election season where politicians tell us America is great, or that it isn't, and then proceed to make it worse,
considering he seems to be implicating a particular politician, I'd be interested in seeing what his examples are.
let's try a more truthful approach. America may once have been the greatest, but today, America, we're just okay.
To call any country the greatest is dubious due to the fact that there are many subjective standards one may use to place their nation above others. But given that even such a short video lampooning American exceptionalism reveals itself so quickly to be misguided, providing half-truths and supplying bad ideas, I would say we're doing all right. And the fact that you were able to exercise your right to criticize the state within which you live, to earn a living for yourself in a free marketplace, is more than just okay. Happy belated 4th of July, everybody! If you've made it to the end, I'd like to thank you very much for watching this marvelous debunking.
Yes, if you would like to support the content this channel is creating, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Yes, and also, consider donating at the link in the description so we can continue to pump out weekly content.
Animation's not cheap, you know.
Yes, and we could really use all the help we can get.
Thank you!